All right, Fresh, let's go to the fan vote. This game won our poll. Make sure you guys are checking us out there on the X, formerly known as Twitter. We put out there every single week a fan vote letting you decide what game is going to be added into our weekly previews. And the winner this week was LSU traveling to Missouri. At time of record, LSU is a 6.5 point favorite. Over under a lot of points in this game, but as you talked earlier in our recap last week here, Fresh, LSU has got a D3 level defense. Over under set 63.5. Missouri ranked in the AP. They're 5-0 on the year. And what I put in here, my first line here, Fresh, before I throw it over to you is, whatever you do, take the over. Because I don't think either one of these teams are going to stop anybody.
There will be no defense played in Como on Saturday afternoon. It's a weird kind of game where it's Tiger War, whatever, but you have a desperate LSU football team who, if they lose this, they're completely irrelevant. And Missouri, who's trying to become truly relevant. They came really close last year to knocking off Georgia at home, a night game, and they have always shown in some games like they're very up and down, where they might show up against a ranked team and play their butts off like they did versus Kansas State and beat them. Other times they get a ranked team, they get blown out, and then you get in intermediate where they play competitive and it just can't finish the ball game. What Tiger team are we going to get on Saturday? There's tons of pressure on them right now. If they win this game, that probably sets them up to be undefeated, moving through, have a chance to play down the stretch, maybe even win the East. You never know. But you got to get through LSU, who's a beat-up team who has their pride taken from them. It puts a battle of wills. And as Drinkowitz, does he truly we beat up on bad teams, we beat up on average teams, but when I get the good team, can I finally get that signature win from a program? Because right now, Eli Drinkowitz doesn't have that right now in Missouri. He somehow gets tons of recruits because they have great NIL set up, but how can he put all those NIL players and those recruits into victories that actually matter? You have your quarterback, Brady Cook, played pretty well so far this season. Cody Schrader, the running back, has run for 463 and 3 touchdowns. And then their star player, Luther Burden III, 43 receptions, 644 yards, and 5 touchdowns, which, if you're trying to keep track, folks, that's the number one receiver in receptions and number one receiver in yards in the country right now. Number one receiver in receiving yards in the country, Luther Burden III. Number 2 is on the other sideline in Malik Neighbors. So the two best receivers in terms of yards receiving are facing off against each other. Expect fireworks all across the field. And you know what? I actually feel really bad if you're a defensive back. But right now in meetings, you're getting blasted by your coaches to cover that person. Make sure you don't let them out of your sight. And then on Saturday, you're going to probably get torched by them left and right, up and down the field. Jaden Daniels has had a great year for LSU, put up tons of stats, 1,700 yards passing, 16 touchdown passes, 2 picks, run for 292 and 3 touchdowns. His career high for single-season touchdown passes is 17. He's done it his freshman year. He did it last year. So he throws one more. He ties it. He throws 2. He sets a single-season passing record for himself for touchdown passes in a year. And this is the 6th game for the Tigers. So he's already on a whole new level of his ability to grasp the offense and put up that potential we're waiting to see. The problem is the LSU defense, which usually they're known for, is way, way behind and preventing them from actually being some of a successful football team. I want to see what he does in this road environment. He got kind of razzled in the second half versus Florida State in the quote-unquote neutral site there in Orlando where they opened the game. Didn't look too comfortable at times against Ole Miss. They somehow got a stop in the football game. They couldn't pull it out and win there. How does he handle the crazies in Como, and how does he handle that Missouri defense, which is a little more physical than Ole Miss usually has, and use that to maybe overcome those sort of shortcomings and put this team on his back and go get a win? If the defense isn't going to step up and shut anybody down, at some point you got to go all Patrick Mahomes and just start scoring touchdowns. You got to start just lighting people up. LSU's offense is averaging 551 yards total offense a game. That's 4th best in the nation. And if you want to keep track in comparison, that's 100 more yards of total offense a game than Missouri. So Missouri's offense is good. LSU is lighting people up. Take the over, take the over, take the over. And if there's any kind of, any other bets around both receivers, combined receiving yards or touchdowns or whatever, I would say light them up, play them, hammer those home as well, because these two receivers are going to have a chance to showcase. And both quarterbacks are going to want to put up points. Both receivers are going to say, you did that, I'm going to do this. So burden neighbors, back and forth, going to try to compete with each other. Who can put up the better numbers? Who can have the better catch? The little ego is going to kick in. And NFL draft season comes around. Keep an eye on both these guys, because in the next couple of years, you're going to hear their names a lot more often. We were talking about how bad LSU's defense is. They're allowing 429 yards a game and have given up at least 31 points in 3 games so far this season. That's unheard of in LSU standards. Is there some sort of a pride moment from those guys? So they sort of, they've heard enough of it. They actually show up and play. I'm not too sold on it, but you can't count out that ego part of hearing how horrible you are for day after day after day and just decide, you know what, forget it. I'm going to show up and get it done. Missouri's defense a little better, allowing 317 a game, 74.8 rushing yards a game, but they've only done it against Vandy, South Dakota State, Middle Tennessee State, and Memphis were 4 of those 5 opponents. So, take that for what you will. Sometimes stats can be a little misleading based on who you played. I think they're going to get shredded. I think they're going to have problems too, and it's going to be whoever has the ball last, whichever quarterback can be trusted, whoever doesn't turn the ball over, will become victorious in the end. As much as I want to take Missouri, and I want to, we could potentially have an undefeated Kentucky, undefeated Missouri meeting next week in Como, which that would be game day in my opinion. I think LSU's offense is a little too much and too explosive in this football game. The Tigers survive by a touchdown. They cover. We're talking like a 47-40 football game, but LSU will win by 7, and they'll cover that 6.5. The over obviously will hit. We've mentioned it 1,000 times, but this is going to be an exciting football game. Stay glued, and I believe it's a noon kickoff. So between this and Red River Rivalry, you'll be using that channel changer a little bit, or having one up on one of your devices. Use the 4 on YouTube, but you're going to watch this ball game and be tuned in the entire time.
Right. I love the name Luther Burden III. It's either the name of a supervillain or the alter ego of a superhero. Like, it's one way or another here. I love this kid's name. I don't know why, but when I was like, that's an awesome name. Missouri's filled with awesome names. Like, this would be a game where I'm over at the Westgate early in the morning, taking a look at all the prop bets. Like, this is the perfect prop bet type of game. I know a lot of times we talk to you guys about over-unders and like point spreads here, but I would be looking like, what are the odds that this game goes and has over 1,000 yards combined total offense between the two teams? Because right now, if you added up both of them, both offenses are averaging just over 1,004 yards a game. It'd be very, very impressive here. With me, Fresh, I'm asking 2 questions about LSU and this defense. Yeah, Jane Daniels, been fantastic there. Logan Diggs, awesome that LSU's kind of picked up that primary running back again. But what's been up with Mason Smith? Like, he started off the year, a lot of hype coming in with Mason Smith. He was real hyped up last year. He had the kind of foolishness that was going on at the beginning of the year, this season, and he has really not been like as advertised there. And then you take a look at Harold Perkins Jr. He was a second team All-American for us, I believe, maybe a first team, but I think he was second team if I remember fresh. He's been good. He just hasn't been like a stud linebacker that we expected him to be. I don't know. I started going more and more as you dove in, as I was working on my research for this game here, Fresh. And after we had recorded our post week 5 thing, I started really looking at this defense. The secondary of LSU is an absolute joke. Burden's going to maybe go for another 100-yard game. He's got 4 on the season. The only game he hasn't had 100 yards, and he went for 96 in that game. And as I was thinking about this, as we were talking about, back and forth, but when Missouri's got a guy by the name of Johnny Walker Jr. on there, and he's a defensive lineman, he's got 15 tackles, 3 sacks on the year. I'm a man who enjoys a nice fine scotch, and the minute I saw Johnny Walker Jr., I was like, you know what? It's a sign. That's who I'm picking. I'm picking Missouri to win this game. Give me Missouri in the 6.5 right there. And again, guys, hammer the over on this one. As much as Fresh said, other one like the Wolverines game being easy money, this Missouri game for the over under, I feel like that would be easy money. But maybe Vegas knows something that we don't on this one. Missouri wins this year. They got two big wins too. I was looking at like LSU. LSU's lost. Their two losses are to Florida State and to Ole Miss. Missouri has beaten a 4-1 Memphis team. They're the only loss on that is that one loss was to Missouri, and they beat K State. K State's 3-1 on the year as well. So Missouri does have some big wins already. This is a respectable football program. I'm impressed with what they've been doing this year. I like the Missouri Tigers in this one.
Just keep walking, Seth. Just keep walking.
Yeah, so I walked quite a bit for a little bit of blue label there. So
I mean, I'll tell you right now, though, if just think about this, folks. If Kentucky beats Georgia and Missouri beats LSU, game day, it's going to probably be in Notre Dame for Notre Dame USC, but it should be in Como for two undefeated teams in Kentucky and Missouri who are looking to maybe get the playoff spot or control and be the only undefeated teams in the SEC, by the way. So there's a lot hanging in the balance. It's just pretty intriguing.
right.